So I had some really good questions this week from people. I think I'm just going to kind of take them randomly and see where that leads me. One question was, where do I start with all of this? And the simple answer is you start by feeling. I've said it before, you get quiet, you lay down, dark, no phone, no music, no distractions, and you pay attention to what feelings arise and where they lead. See, we can't fix what we don't know, right? If there's a flood in your house and you don't know where it's coming from, you can't fix it. You have to find where the leak is. In simplistic terms, that's kind of what we're doing. Those feelings are going to evoke thoughts, and the thoughts are going to go back to the emotions, and it is this back and forth between the two. And we put ourselves in the middle of it, and we attach to both the thoughts and the emotions. We have to pay attention to which one is fueling the other and why. And this is not easy. So much is unknown. So much lives in our unconscious, and we just ignore it. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and building. We have to uncover what's below the surface. And we're not going to do that by looking at our phones, by dating, by drinking, by working, partying, whatever distractions you have. You're not going to get to the issue. You're not going to get to the root. You're not going to get to where you need to be. Think about how much you do to avoid feeling. We live in a society that has us running from sun up to sundown, and sometimes longer. There is never time for ourselves. There is never time to be quiet. There's never time to process and think and feel and just be. I hate just being. Like, it is painful. I would plan out as much as I could to make sure that I never had an empty moment, and I did this for decades. And when the empty moments would come, all of those feelings would start to arise. You know, I just recently related it to something. When I was a child, and I'm sure it's true for most of us, we needed that attention, we needed that connection, we needed that bonding, and that was our lifeline. And when that was severed, we were sent alone into isolation. And that always felt shameful to me. And I never understood until recently that when I don't have something to fix, do, concentrate on, be, and I just have empty space with nobody around, I feel completely shameful. I feel like a loser. I feel worthless, like it's nothing. And I avoided that my whole life. Where you start is by starting by feeling what you're feeling. Pay attention to the feelings that arise. Pay attention to the thoughts that they provoke. See, so the feelings produce the thoughts. The thoughts feed the feelings. And it just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it builds to this huge crescendo of anxiety and fear and panic. If we can pull ourselves back and not engage in that dialogue, it's like trying to argue with somebody, right? Picture trying to argue with a drunk. Somebody's hammered and you're trying to argue with them. You're not going to get through them. You're not going to argue your way through your thoughts and your emotions. We have to unattach and separate from them. Let them fight it out amongst themselves. You don't need to get in there and be the referee. You just need to pay attention to who's saying what, who's feeling what, and what's going on. Because it has nothing to do with the present moment. We can become more present by paying attention to what's going on within us. That's what led me to this whole shame thing. I was sitting here, laying on the couch. I had no motivation. I really just didn't feel like doing anything. And all of those feelings arised. The rest of the world is out doing something. People are living their lives. I realize it's a pandemic, so I'm just going back to childhood with those thoughts. And I started to question, well, what's going on inside of me? Why are my emotions coming to this point? And why is my thought process just putting me down? I'm putting myself down. I had to separate from that, and I had to see what was going on. And those feelings and those thoughts, by observing them, brought me back to childhood when I was punished and isolated, where the only lifeline I had for human connection was taken away from me. And I convinced myself that I was bad, that I was flawed, that I was defective, that I was wrong, that I was a mistake. This is the dialogue that has been going on in my life forever. Once I stop engaging and kind of being a referee between my thoughts and my feelings, it becomes so much clearer. I'm not a part of it at that moment. It's like getting dragged into a fight. You see two people fighting, you could watch and you could see the one person's point versus the other person's point. But if they trigger you and you get into that argument, all clarity and reasoning is gone, because now you're just caught up in anger and emotions and feelings. When you can objectively observe what is going on within you, clarity will come. It's not easy. It is anything but easy. It's practice. When you start laying there and start feeling, you're going to get caught up into it. You are going to get caught up into it many, many, many times. Once we start recognizing that we're caught up in the dialogue, we can stop being caught up in it. But we have just been living in the middle of the feelings and emotions for so long, we don't know how to separate. So if I was to say, where are you going to start? That's where I would start. Try to separate yourself from those thoughts and those feelings, because they're trapped inside of you. And you've done everything humanly possible to avoid them, to outrun them, to outmaneuver them. You have to feel them. You have to observe them, and you have to see where they come from and what results they're producing. And none of the results are good. Learn how to detach. Learn how to be an objective observer in that dialogue. And then you'll take it from there, and you'll be able to stay in it longer, stay out of it longer before you start to get caught up in it. And that time will increase, where if you only have 30 seconds of being objective and then you get sucked in, over the course of a month, you may be able to do it for 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 8 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and it will just keep extending. It's practice. You have to be dedicated to taking some time for yourself to feel bad. I used to joke with my buddy all the time. He's like, because what are you doing the next couple of days? I said, well, Tuesday I got this, Monday I got that, but Wednesday I'm just going to feel bad. And he was like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't have any time in the next 2 days to take for myself, so I'm scheduling Wednesday to feel bad. And that would be my day. I would set aside a chunk of time to just sit and see where my thoughts and feelings took me. And over time, it just became practice where I need to do it often. I like to do it once or twice a day if possible, but I don't need to do it for 4 or 6 hours anymore. There's shorter periods because you just start to hone your process and you maximize your time. It's like if you're cooking or you're filling up your car or cleaning something or writing an email, it just starts to become part of your life. And you're going to start to notice that as the days go on, that you get away from taking time to yourself and dealing with your feelings. There's a discomfort that starts. And when that discomfort starts, there's a choice. We can either start running and avoiding, or we can tell ourselves, something's coming up. I need to take the time and feel this and let it be, because it is screaming to be heard, felt, acknowledged, grieved, processed, and released. And you're not going to do that by running around crazy, never taking time for yourself. It needs to come out. And you're strong enough to do it. Start with short increments and build up. And you will get there. And it will be easier. It will be less frightening. It almost gets to the point where it's welcoming, where I start to feel that discomfort in me. And listen, obviously I wish it wasn't there and I can skate through life, but that's just not the way my life worked out. And this is the thing that I have to do to feel good. But when it starts to come up, I now know that I will be emotionally lighter. I will be closer to feeling that source of joy. There'll be another layer that gets peeled away, and I'm closer to my authentic self. And that's where we want to get to. That's where we want to go. That's where we want to be. It takes a while before we stop fearing the feelings within ourselves. But it is possible to do it. Be patient with yourself. Be kind with yourself. If you can only do it for 30 seconds, that's 30 seconds more than you did it yesterday. And be good with that. And then work up to the minute and so on. People also often ask me, do people fully recover from the trauma and abuse? And my answer is no, we don't. We learn how to manage it better. We learn how not to fear it. We become confident and competent within ourselves that we will be able to handle the things that come up. It's practice. We keep working on dealing with things that we fear to the point where we don't fear them anymore. And we build up skills to handle difficult emotional situations. We get to know ourselves. We get to go back in emotional time and heal those wounds. As we go back, we learn how to heal ourselves. We learn a process. We get familiar with ourselves. We understand how and why we do things. See, I will always be flawed. I will always be defective. I will always have a hole in my soul. They just get a lot smaller. And there's some comfort in knowing that I will never fully recover. Because if you fully recover, you stop. You're done. You're stuck. The depth of a human soul is so unknown. There is no end to it. We can constantly go deeper. You can spend 1,000 years working on yourself and there's still a depth to it. See, I know that the more of this work that I do, the more joy that I experience. There's an endless amount of joy to be had. It's not like, okay, I'm recovered, that's it. I've dealt with my level of pain. This is as much joy as I'm allowed to have. This is as much pain. No. The amount of pure soul joy, that soulful, joyful energy that you can tap is endless. So if you think you're going to arrive at a certain point, you don't. I mean, you could stop anytime you want. But for me, I experience a certain amount of comfort, a certain amount of joy, and a certain amount of competency. But there's just something in me that just keeps going, and I don't stop. But it gets to the point where it starts to happen naturally. You take the time to feel what you need to feel. And if you can get those bad, negative emotions out of you, you're just creating more space for joy. So if you still have negative emotions in you and you stop doing the work, you also stop yourself from experiencing a deeper level of contentment and joy and self-satisfaction. So for me, I'm never done. I don't have to sit here 8 hours a day trying to meditate and deal with my feelings. It becomes a more natural process of, I feel a disturbance inside me. I feel uncomfortable. I feel these awkward feelings, what's going on, and I'm able to process them quicker and on the fly more. Where if, I was always one that kind of feared certain social situations. So, a month before I would start, in the back of my mind, it would just start playing these scenes of like how I would handle every possible situation that may come up so that I would feel safe and competent and confident. Like it was almost like I just pumped myself up for a couple of weeks before certain events so that I felt bulletproof going in. But we get to the point where we don't have to do that, right? We don't have to sit in isolation and try to just put on this like shield of invincible armor to go out. We can go out as ourselves and not have to worry. But you keep going with it because you never know what's coming up. If I don't have to put on all this protection to go out socially and I just go out on myself and I get caught off guard and I feel humiliated or shamed or whatever it is, I don't have to spiral down out of control to the point where I just start beating myself up and feeling really bad about myself. I can kind of process it more as it's happening. And you learn how to take that negative self-dialogue that puts you, that washed over shameful feeling you get where the room you get tunnel vision and it's almost like the entire room stops and everybody's focused on you and you get that warm, washed over feeling of like deer in the headlights. Like that doesn't have to happen anymore. The work will go on, and it'll go on more naturally, and you will start to welcome it. I make time to feel bad, to deal with uncomfortable feelings, when I have the time to do it, when I need to do it. But I don't have to do it all the time. This will go on for the rest of my life. I will constantly be clearing out emotional garbage to make space for more joy. And the more experiences I have, the more times I feel uncomfortable out there in the world, the more times I feel shame and humiliated and just not good about myself, or I say something wrong, I don't have to go home and obsess about it for the next 14 days and then feel awkward the next time I see those people, because in reality, nobody even remembered what I said. Except me, because I'm sitting obsessing over it. Now I can kind of dismiss it more and go, that was just really stupid. Like instead of going into this huge shame spiral and then not wanting to see people for 2 weeks. So I don't for me, I don't feel like I'll ever fully be recovered, and the fact that this work continues on just makes more space for joy, and that's the good thing. That there's an end to the amount of pain we feel about what we went through. But there's no limit to the amount of space we can create to allow joy to exist within us. And that's where we want to get to. That source of energy that's within us that we've been blocking for so long. Because when you can't just choose which feelings to block. I can't go, listen, let's just block those negative feelings. Like if I'm blocking feelings, I'm blocking good feelings and bad feelings. So if you are trying not to feel bad, in essence, you're really trying not to feel good. Because you cannot selectively parse out what type of emotions you are going to repress and push away. You're either going to experience them all or you're going to deny them all. And you have to feel the bad to experience the good. If you guys have any questions, you can send me messages on Instagram or go to my website, joeryan.com. I think it's the About Me page. You can shoot me an email from there. And, from time to time, I'll choose questions and talk about them. I want to thank Patricia and Rob for their 2 questions that kind of got me rolling on this episode. And that's it. Until next time, have a great day. Thanks for listening. You can contact me at joeryan.com. Follow me on Instagram at joeryan. And if you want, you can leave us a review on iTunes. That'd be great. All right, take care.